Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. There goes Nibbler. Today I want to do another installment of Editing Explained, going through the edits I'm making to my book, Ottoman Destiny. I think this is my 4th video for this book. I am on the 5th draft edits. I don't know why he always bobs his head when I'm filming. He just wants attention. Yes, we're paying attention to you, Nibbler. So this is the 5th draft edits. For this draft, I began working on the 2nd act of the book first, and so I've already shown you guys Act 2 and Act 3 edits. So for this video, I'm going to go through Act 4 and Act 1. Watch what this crazy bird does. He's like Spider-Man over here. He just has one toe holding himself up. Okay, bye Nibbler. Okay, so let's get into it. Here are the edits for Act 4 and Act 1 of the 5th draft of Ottoman Destiny. Let's go. Okay, we actually begin here with Part 4, Funeral Fires Lament Former Kings. Here you could see the map for Act 4, and this is screwed up. So I made this map like all from scratch on Microsoft Word, and I don't know why exactly, but for whatever reason, like the map looked fine, but when I go to like print it out, the font gets all screwy. But I figured out how to fix this, and it's really simple how to do it. So all I did to make it look right is just take a screenshot of my computer where I have like the image of the map. All I need to do is just like post the picture of the screenshot into the book. So I don't know, hopefully that explains it. But yeah, I wanted to add maps for my books. This is the first book I have that has maps in it. But yeah, so I'm just learning how to do it right. But yeah, it's real simple. All you do is just take a screenshot of the map, then just put the picture of the map in the book as a photo, an edited photo of the screenshot. Real easy. I decided to make that little line there, bad blood, its own sentence, because like everything else in this little paragraph here is just like individual words, friends, family, old rivals. So it made more sense to have bad blood there be just its own standalone sentence as well. Just some small changes I'm making to the book. I think the main thing I want to point out here is like, the ideas were bounced around. I wanted to get rid of were because I think were is kind of indicative of like passive sentences. And then also like at the end of the paragraph, there's the line back and forth, bouncing ideas back and forth, which I think is kind of a cliche. And I kind of don't like cliches too much, so I thought I could just get rid of it. Again, not liking the word were being passive, so who were in the area. So he saved some civilians who came under attack. I think that just makes it a little bit better. He saved some civilians who were in the area. He saved some civilians who came under attack. I don't know. I think it's a little better. I am not going to go through it, but you could just see changes I'm making to the book. A lot of them I've already covered in these videos, and they're pretty small generally. It's just changing a word here or there, or getting rid of an unnecessary word, or whatever. Getting rid of commas, slicing up sentences. That's what I'm doing a lot in this book, and I've covered it, so not going over all of them. I thought it'd be cool here to add this part where Creed calls his sister Katie, because several times in the previous book, Syrian Dander, and I think in this one, Trevor calls Kate Katie, and she says like, only my brothers call me Katie. And this is a scene with Kate's brother. So I thought it made a lot of sense here that Samuel Creed should call her Katie, just because I've referenced that so many times, only my brothers call me Katie. So here you actually see them do that. Oh, I just realized too, there's also another scene later in the book with Kate's brothers. So they should definitely call her Katie there at one point at least. I got rid of these for 2 reasons. So first, the line there, father. I don't really like in dialogue how a lot of characters will like name each other. Because how often in conversation when you're talking to someone do you really say their name? You know, if they're just right there, and especially if it's only you two in the room together or whatever, only you two in the conversation, why would you say their name? Because I mean, they know you're talking to them, so there's no use to call them by their name there. So there's no use for him to say father. And then that line, as you suggested, I decided to cut that because that felt to me very much like, you know, the phrase as you know, something I hate in books or, you know, movies and stuff when they say as you know, blah blah blah. Because if the character knows that, why would, you know, you say that? So just cut that line and it works fine, perfectly fine on its own. I don't really know why I did this. I think in Clive Cussler's books, you know, I patterned the series a lot after the writer Clive Cussler. I think in many of his books, he might use like the metric system, so he'll say meters instead of yards. But I don't know why I really do that because to me it should just all be, you know, yards or whatever. Especially because I think most of my readers, I imagine, I don't know how many readers I'd have, but I imagine most of them would be, you know, Americans, and I'm also American, so why should I use meters and kilometers and stuff? I don't know how long that is, so I think it's a lot better just to say, you know, yards and miles and so on. I decided to cut these lines here. Trevor and Alfred just have this kind of line back and forth where they do like a "Don't call me Shirley" thing from, you know, the film Airplane, which I thought, you know, at first I thought it was kind of funny, but this is the fifth draft, and now, you know, by the fifth draft, you know, it's just less and less funny. So now I just don't think this is good at all. You know, this banter they have about, you know, setting up this "I'm not Shirley" joke. Even though this is their kind of humor, like this is something they would joke about, I just don't think it's really necessary at all. I mean, I think readers should already get a good idea of how these characters interact, like what their relationship is. You already know these guys, you know, they're best friends. They're like bros, you know? So I think this "Don't call me Shirley" joke is just kind of stupid and it's just not really good. And there's other moments where, you know, they have levity where, you know, they'll just be kind of joking around or whatever. And so I think those scenes work much more better than this one. I think this one's just stupid and so I just got rid of it. Real small thing here, but this is describing like a NATO fleet that is assembled, and I list like every ship and captain. And I realized I did not name the captain of the French warship in the book. So I wrote that name in. Actually, I did have the name for him beforehand, and I think he was actually in the cast of characters, even though he never actually appeared by name in the book. But I just decided to add him here. The main reason why, even though like none of these characters really actually appear in the book, like only one of them actually has a line of dialogue in the book, I wanted to add the characters because I think, you know, one phase of the Trevor Knight series will be set in Europe. So, you know, many of these characters may eventually come back and, you know, they'll have a role of some kind. You know, so I don't know, you know, I have a book planned for Canada and a book planned for like Spain and Portugal. I don't really have a book planned right now for France, but you know, I'll probably do France at some point as well. So I kind of wanted to set up certain characters because, you know, maybe like 10 books from now or 15 books from now, I don't know, maybe, you know, one of these characters will actually feature in the series. This scene, I won't go into it, but this is a scene with Tugchi, one of the main characters, and I was really deliberating where this scene should go. So originally this is like chapter, I don't know, 96 or 97 of the book. And basically what this chapter is it has a major revelation about the villain, kind of, you know, so it'll kind of change a lot of how you may view the villain at the very end of the book, which I kind of like because, you know, the whole book is kind of leading toward this, you know, climax or whatever. And then at the very end, this other thing is introduced that will kind of complicate things. So I was just kind of real confused where to actually put this scene to like maximize the effect of it. So I think it should definitely go closer toward the climax. And it's kind of funny because if you actually read on in this book, like the actual, you know, edited book here, I think there's like one or two spots where I actually note down like move this scene to this moment, and then like the next scene has a line saying like move that, you know, scene to this section. So it's just trying to figure out where this scene belongs best at. I really like this scene here. So Constantine, this marble emperor is, attacking Istanbul. And there's this moment where, there's this explosion close by. And I'll just kind of read it. So Constantine was knocked off his feet and felt blood streaming from both nostrils, coating his brown beard. Wiping his upper lip with his arm, he saw the crimson, then looked for the rest of his squad, but they were all gone, save for parts of their clothes or gear. He saw a heart lying there, but no torso, no stomach, nothing else of the soldier. And then I added this line. Briefly, he checked himself to ensure that the heart wasn't his own. I really like that, And this just shows like the carnage of war, A lot of like movies, when they show like, soldiers like being hit close by with like, in this case it's a blast, I think, from a tank. They'll just kind of fall on the ground and you'll just see them dead. But here, I mean, basically, you don't even see the soldiers anymore. I mean, you just may see parts of their clothing, or in this case, he just sees this one soldier's heart. That's all that's left of him. And, I don't know, like, how real that is, but it feels very real to me. I don't know, maybe I read it in some other book, like a Tim O'Brien book, about the Vietnam War. I don't know, maybe I kind of took it from there. So anyway, I just also like this detail where, he looks and he sees nothing but a heart laying on the ground. And, he kind of checks his chest to make sure it's not his own. Which, can you just imagine, like, how terrifying that would be? Like, not knowing if that is yours or not. And you could just imagine, like, the pain of going through that, I mean, he's lucky to survive. So he doesn't even know if that's his heart. And then, so I added a line at the very end here. He felt his heart in his throat while the lone heart on the ground beat its last. I don't know, I just thought it was a real kind of scenic idea, a good visual, is that, you just see this heart on the ground, nothing but a heart, just like pumping its final time. Real dark, gritty stuff, but I like it. And that's something about this series is, it has a lot of like lighthearted stuff, but then also some really dark moments as well. Oh my goodness, look at all of this. So this scene here, basically this is, I don't want to go into it, but they're kind of talking about money. There's a money issue thing going on here. And I think it's just really kind of dragging the pacing of the story because this is like the climax of the book. And so I have this whole like half page here where they're kind of talking about like how to, divide up money and who should get what money. And, this is in the middle of the climax of the book. So I just really wanted to rush through that part. So I cut a lot of it. That was actually kind of the end of Act 4, so this is the afterword of the book. I decided to cut a lot of the afterword just because I don't think it's really super necessary. So I think I'm just kind of overtelling a lot of stuff, so I just kind of wanted to shorten the afterword a bit. And here you could see the cast of characters at the end of the book, and it looks real messy because what I've tried to do is every time I see a character appear in the book, especially if they have a line of dialogue, I wanted to make sure they were in the cast of characters. And you could see I actually missed a lot of characters. So there's probably somewhere upwards of like 10 or 15 characters who were not in the cast of characters that I decided to add. I don't know, maybe 15 or 20. Okay, now we circle around to the start of the book. So this is the prologue. Marshal your troops for a city under siege. Again, trying to get rid of the use of the word were, so his thoughts were interrupted by. So I just changed it to the call of a bird brought him back to the moment. So I think it just reads better. You can see another map screwed up in the little drawing I did at the top. So there's me. Oh no. This is also kind of a debate for me as if I should add like the full details of the sea. I think you could see in the first map of this video, the whole sea is like drawn in. But for the first two maps of the book, It's just the coastline is drawn in. And that's because, this is the first map I ever drew. So it's kind of more, amateurish. There's not as many details because this is my first map. I wasn't very good at it. But by the time I got to the third and fourth map of the book or whatever, I was more better at drawing. So I drew in the whole sea. So I don't know, I think I should probably just draw in the whole sea for this map as well. And it'll only take, 2 minutes or whatever. But I think it'll just look better probably, and it'll be more consistent. So that way for every map, the entire sea will be drawn in. Part 1, Sleep and Slumber in Folded Hands. Won't go through it, but you could see just changes I'm making to the book. Really just small changes, word here or there or whatever. I've gone through most of these kind of changes with you guys before though. The main thing I want to show here is like the little cross thing I have on the top left of the page. What happened originally was this was like a whole other chapter, but I talked about it in a previous video. I decided to link these chapters. And so originally here I had a section break because this is like where one of the original chapter breaks used to be. But I kind of realized there is no reason for the section break here, and the chapter ends pretty, swiftly because there's only like a page and a half or 2 pages left in the chapter. So there's not much need to have a section break. But also more than that, even though there is a perspective shift here, like the point of view shifts from one character to another, it's actually consistent because like the start of this chapter begins with, this captain and a cook. And then like the owner of the ship walks in, and then the point of view kind of shifts to him without any kind of section break or whatever. He just kind of naturally takes over the POV of the book. And then he goes, and then you meet his girlfriend, and here it, switches point of view into her perspective. So I don't think there's really any need for a section break here because I didn't have any other section break previous to this. So I think it just works perfectly well as one whole chapter. And the whole chapter is really only about 4 pages or something, so I don't think I need section breaks. And then this is the end of that same image I just showed you guys, the end of that chapter. When you next meet this character, the owner of the ship's girlfriend here, she is actually knocked unconscious, and the reason you find out is because she hit her head. So I thought it just made sense here to actually end the chapter with you seeing her, knock her head against something and, go unconscious. So here you actually see that happen, because I thought it was a little bit weird that you didn't actually see her get knocked out, but then when you meet her next, she's knocked out. So I thought it'd be good just to put it in here, and it's a good way to like end the chapter, someone losing consciousness. Perfect end to a chapter. Here you could see I was curious if axe should be AX or AXE. And so I looked it up, and I thought like one would be British and one would be American. So I was like, okay, which spelling is English or American, And what it actually said is that AX is more of a like old spelling for axe, and axe, AXE, is pretty much the modern spelling. So the only reason you'll really see is spelled AX is more just like old-fashioned spelling. So it is pretty much antiquated or whatever. So this is not like a British versus American spelling thing. AXE is kind of more universally the correct spelling nowadays. So I changed it to AXE, and I realized that looks nothing like AXE right there. It's just some squibble there, but I know what it says. That's AXE. I decided to add this little line here at the end because this book ends the chapter. So the chapter begins with these characters looking at this painting. And so I realized I could just end the chapter with them looking back at the painting. So it just bookends the chapter. And I like that just because it adds symmetry, This is a line I deliberated over so much. Like I honestly spent probably half an hour trying to figure out how to write this line. There was also a possibility the treatment could affect her fertility, so Denise's struggles would continue even after she left the hospital. This is like an 8 or 9-year-old girl or whatever in children's hospital, and I was really struggling with this line, and I can't really like go into like all the details of what I was struggling with or whatever, but I mean essentially my main thing was this character is like 8 or 9 years old, and so I was real debating on how to word this, like affect her fertility in adulthood, or, affect her fertility. I don't know. I was just struggling so much over this one sentence and how to write it. And so I asked my mom like what she thought, and she suggested something like, affect her childbearing years or whatever. But I didn't like that, because to me that kind of reduces women to just like childbearers. Like that's the whole purpose of women, is just, to bear children. And so I just didn't really like that. I didn't want that to be kind of the implication I was setting up. So I just really struggled with this for a long time. And in the end, all I did was wound up adding in the coming years, affect her fertility in the coming years. So I don't know. I don't know why I struggled with this so much, but literally a half hour spent deliberating on this one sentence and how to word, the thing about her fertility. You could see here, like, this character grabs a stack of 20 or 30 books originally. These are just like children's books, so they're like real thin. So I, changed it down to 15 or 20. But after working at the bookstore for a while, I've kind of realized that even though like children's books, I mean like early, children's books, like, 3-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old books, even though they are real thin, only like, 30, 40, 50 pages or whatever, they are also kind of heavy. So I think, I'm actually going to change it even more from this to probably just say, she grabs a stack of 10 books or something like that. Because, yeah, that's probably about all I do, is about 10 books at a time. Children's books are kind of heavy. So even though they're thin, I just kind of wanted to cut down on it. That's kind of an experience after working at the bookstore, something I've kind of learned, 15 or 20 books, a stack of them, even children's books, 60 pages long. That'd be a pretty heavy stack. So just cutting down on it even more than this. Just some more random changes you guys could see. Not going to go through them all. I decided to cut this whole section here, or line here, because I just didn't really think it's very good or funny or whatever. And really, it's all kind of building up to this one line or whatever. Like, there's no evidence I had anything to do with that. It'll be on your conscience, assuming I have one. So, it's just kind of meant to show these characters, just how they kind of get along with each other. They're just kind of kidding each other. But again, after the 5th draft of the book, I read it the first time and it's like, okay, that's passable. And the second time it's like, okay, well, I don't see a problem with that. But now, the 5th time around, I just kind of look at that line, it'll be on your conscience, assuming I have one. I just think a lot of readers, they may not really get that they're just kind of kidding around or whatever. They'll be like, what? This character doesn't have a conscience, So I just thought I'd get rid of it. This whole section here. It's not necessary, and it's not funny or anything really, and it's not necessary to show like their relationship or whatever. You see plenty else in other instances how they get along, so it's just not necessary at all. It's just a bad joke. And then the line at the very bottom there, one, she said, and just our luck, she should be in town. I decided to get rid of that whole line because, there's no reason why this character in question would be, like, not in the town or whatever. She lives there, so, how could that be, like, just their luck that he should be in town? That character lives there. They have lived there for 2 years. So, yeah, of course they're going to be there. So it just works a lot better. Got any ideas? 1. And then immediate jump cut to the next scene. I'm not showing you guys this to show any kind of edits or whatever. I just kind of wanted to talk about, I don't know if it's characterization here or what, but basically in this scene, originally what I was going to do was this character Ariel Geller like stumbles upon a conversation she is not supposed to hear. And so what originally happened was these like 2 Turkish not soldiers, they're actually like security for the prime minister. Originally they were gonna like grab her and threaten her and like maybe attempt to rape her or whatever. Because what's going to happen is the Marble Emperor, Constantine, is going to show up and kill these characters. So originally, like when I was writing it, that's kind of how these scenes would usually play out is, these bad guys who are about to get killed, they're going to threaten this woman and, basically threaten to assault her. And then what happens is someone comes to the rescue. And that's like the way it would normally happen in fiction. But I kind of realized that it would actually almost have a better effect, I think, is if these men, instead of like threatening to assault her or whatever, are actually kind of nice to her and respectful and cordial. And so at the end here, the bodyguard spoke amiably. Apologies, but the area is supposed to have been cleared. Will you wait here a moment? So this security for the prime minister, they're actually nice guys. And part of the reason why I also did this is because, they realized that she is an American citizen because she speaks English to them. So I kind of realized, like, why would these two security agents assault an American citizen, a tourist, they think, in Turkey? Why would they, attack her like that? It just didn't really make sense. So I think it made more sense that, they see that this woman is a tourist, basically, they think, an American, so they are polite to her and they're nice to her. And so then what happens is Constantine, the emperor, comes out of nowhere and kills these two security agents. So originally, they're going to be trying to rape her or whatever, and so he comes to the rescue and it's like, oh, thanks, But now he shows up and kills them, and she's just like, oh my God, what is this person doing? What's happening? So I think it's just kind of a good, I don't know, subverting expectations or whatever. Instead of just having these two guys who are about to be killed be villains, actually kind of make them good guys. And I think that's kind of cool because like Turkey is like the antagonist of this book, they're the bad guys in this book, Turkey. But that doesn't mean like every Turk at every moment has to be bad guys. So here, these guys are actually kind of nice guys and they're polite to her and whatever. And they ask like if she has a hotel and if she needs a ride to her hotel. And so I thought it was just kind of a neat way to do it instead of just having the stereotypical like, bad guys try to attack the woman and, someone comes to her rescue. Instead, two guys are nice to her and someone comes out of nowhere and kills them. Okay, this is another line I struggled with for quite a while. So I had this line here, Tugchi looked at Russell, still struck by the man's beauty. I really deliberated over that line because of that word beauty, because I just did not want to use the word handsome. I know that would usually be, the word, looked at Russell, still struck by his handsomeness or whatever. But I didn't really want to put that because to me, handsome is just a real plain word. I mean, it's just real common. To me, that didn't really do it justice. It didn't set him apart at all. It's just a real, common, oh, he's attractive or whatever. So I used the word beauty originally, but I didn't really explain why I put it. I mean, I just had the word beauty and it was just kind of left there hanging. And so I was kind of like, I should probably get rid of the word beauty. But I didn't want to do handsome or attractive, so I added this line, or this whole section really, because I was having trouble with that line beauty. I wanted to keep the word beauty, but I wanted to justify it more to readers and let them know like why that word beauty is there instead of just being, handsome or attractive or whatever. So the whole line now reads, Tugchi looked at Russell, struck by his stark beauty. While he was husky and muscle-bound, he did not have the look of a rugged cowboy or a cage fighter. Instead, there was something slightly feminine, urbanite about him that made him look more like one of several street dance artists she had seen around Istanbul. These men did not all have the lanky form of ballet dancers. Many were shorter and thicker like Russell, but they were strengthened by their dancing. Russell appeared to her like a man who enjoyed dancing and was supremely gifted at it, and she longed for him to retake her hand and lead her to a dance floor. So I think this line here just better, illustrates what I'm trying to say for readers here. So yes, Tetugchi Russell is beautiful, not handsome or attractive, but actually beautiful. And she says there's something kind of feminine about him, and the reason is because he's not like macho man cowboy, hunky cowboy or whatever. He is more like a dancer, and not a long lanky slim form of a ballet dancer, but he's kind of a little bit short stocky guy, but in spite of that he looks more like that's where he belongs, like going to a dance club, than getting in a cage fight. So I don't know, I just really like that added detail. So yeah, that whole line added just to make that one word beauty make more sense. I don't know, what do you guys think? I usually don't show you guys small stuff like this anymore, but I just wanted to point this one out. What about the Acropolis in Athens? I realize the saying in Athens there is really unnecessary. I mean, I wouldn't say like, what about the pyramids in Egypt? You just say, what about the pyramids? So I think it makes much more sense to just say, what about the Acropolis? And then at the bottom there, I've never gone too far west. I realized I could just cut that whole line just by saying Malta is the farthest west let's see, farthest or furthest? I'm gonna have to think about that. I don't know, I may just change this altogether unless someone lets me know which one is right. I don't know, because I'm really racking my brain here. Usually I'm pretty good at knowing the difference between further and farther. I don't even know if farther is a word. But yeah, I'm just torn here which one is right. I don't know. So either let me know, or I'll just probably try to find a way to change that so I don't need to use further or farther altogether. I'll just come up with some other way to say that. Malta is the, westernmost place I have been or something. Here you can see I misspelled this character's name, Demetrios. Because I was, reading the book, editing the book, and I saw, it said Demetrius with a U, and I was like, wait a minute, is it Demetrius or Demetrios? So I looked it up because this is a historical character, the brother of Constantine, the Marble Emperor, Constantine the 11th. So I looked it up, and it is Demetrios with an O. So yeah, I just need to word search and change all of the Demetriuses to the correct spelling. This is just an example of me being too wordy. She returned to the kitchen and poured the hot water into the teapot, and from there poured it out into the chai glasses. Placing them on a saucer, she carried them carefully out to the living room, then set the saucer on a small table. Versus, she returned to the kitchen and finished making the tea. A lot more concise. Again, not pointing out edits here, just something kind of character-wise I want to point out, because again, I like this. Earlier you see Ariel, another character, you see her really like the generosity of the Turks, because there's this whole scene where it just talks about how generous all of the storekeepers are to her, and they just give her free stuff, free samples and stuff, and they just will not take her money. They just give her food all the time. And so, there's this whole scene where Ariel is talking about just how generous and good-hearted the Turks are. And so here, a couple chapters later, you have this other character, William Barrett, and he has a whole different impression of the Turks. So his, scene here, it talks about just how, all the Turks he comes across are trying to scam him and stuff. So I like it because it's just completely different perspectives on the Turkish people. So Ariel, hers just talks about how generous they are, how giving they are, all this stuff, how charitable they are, whatever. And William Barrett, another character, he sees them and just sees, they're always trying to scam him, rip him off, and all this stuff. So I like it because it's just showing the two different sides of a people, and I really like that, because instead of just being all good or all bad, it shows the contrast. So to Ariel, she sees it, the Turks are real good people. She is also the character I was talking about, where the security agents are real nice to her. Instead of attacking her, they're actually polite to her. So, with Ariel, you see, she likes the Turks and they're real good people. And for William Barrett here, it's a completely different impression he has. So I just like that a lot. And it, to me, it just shows instead of being like all good or all evil, it shows, there's different perspectives to things. And, to, some people, the Turks are real nice people, some of the best people in the world. And to William Barrett here, he's like, he doesn't like these people at all. So I just like showing that, both do exist. There's the good people and there's also the bad people. And another thing here, you don't see it in this book, I'm not going to show it now, but also several times in the book it mentions like how good Turkish people are to like stray cats. And that's something I read about is, like in Istanbul especially, you'll see a ton of cats everywhere. And the store owners and stuff are real good at like putting out food and stuff because, they just really like all these cats and there's cats everywhere. And the Turkish people just kind of accept it. To them, it's just kind of like they live in the city too. And, there's also a scene where it talks about like you'll see a lot of cats in mosques. They're just like hanging out there. So all the people, worshiping in the mosque, and there'll just be cats in there because the Turkish people are real good to cats. And that to me also shows, their character, if they're good to animals, and that establishes their character. They're good, compassionate people. And I also like this line here at the end where it actually shows the line in Greek because I think that's so cool. I just love the Greek language. I don't know, it just looks so cool, I think. I don't want to go over it, but here I just have this whole line just kind of tweaking the sentences and stuff. Just exactly how to write, these few sentences. So if you want to pause it and read it, you can. Otherwise, I'm not going to go through it all. It's just small stuff. And if you hear any bangs in the background, that's because like our neighbor is firing off a bunch of gunshots. That's just, American life, I guess. Just neighbors shooting guns. Here toward the middle of the image, Osman, a lanky young man of 6 and 20. That's kind of a line I took from like, Jane Austen. She described a lot of her character ages that way. Instead of saying like 26, it's 6 and 20. But, I never do that anywhere else in the book. And I just thought it'd be confusing because to me, I read that 6 and 20 and my brain thinks he is 62, not 26. Because if you say 6 and 20, I'm just like 6 and 20, 6 and 2. But anyway, so I just decided to get rid of it. So a young man of 26. Getting rid of, kind of Jane Austen-esque language because Jane Austen is one of the worst writers to ever live. Speaking of worst writers to ever live, you can see I have several like quicklies here and probably some other stuff. Oh, I think there's also like a couple uses of the word filled here. So just tweaking it. So you can actually see kind of towards the top there, I actually changed the word to quickly. Usually I'm getting rid of quickly, but there I thought it actually fit. And toward the bottom of the page, you could see there's two uses of the word quickly that I got rid of, replacing one with fast and the other with swiftly. So just trying to get rid of repetition. And I don't really like the word quickly, but for whatever reason, I decided to keep the first one there at the top. Real small detail that I was kind of almost skipping over, and I'll just try to go real quick about it, is, this character asks how Ariel's books are going. And, Ariel had that line there where she said, great. And I just didn't realize that I didn't fully, flesh out kind of the unintended meaning behind that. I don't know if that makes sense at all. But basically, I have this line here where, Tugchi, the character who asked that, she is thinking of another book Ariel is working on. But instead, at this point, Ariel is working on another book about Constantine, the Marble Emperor here. So, when Tugchi asks how her book is going, Ariel says great because she is thinking in her head about her book about Constantine. When Tugchi is, talking about her book on this guy I don't know how to pronounce it. Maimarsinen? I don't know. He was like the architect of the Ottoman Empire. Anyway, so I decided to just add that line there. Great, Ariel said, thinking of her books on Constantine, only to realize that Tugchi meant her books on Maimarsinen. I don't know pronunciation. Anyway, I thought it was just a real good detail to put in here, so it's kind of characters talking across purposes in a way, character meaning one thing and the other character like interpreting it differently, but actually the line of dialogue is all the same because anyway, I'm talking way too much about it. I'm sorry. Moving on. Just because in the couple images ago I was talking about, the Greek lettering, I kind of want to change a few more of them. So, there's the part of kind of the top there, Barrett said yeah or Gaia or whatever. I just want to change that to the Greek letters just because I think it looks so cool. I love Greek so much. And then towards the middle, there's the line He Polis, which means the city. And so I think I'll just change that to the Greek letters as well. And this is another small detail. Actually, it's kind of a major detail for this. But, there's this character Constantine, who is the final Byzantine emperor, Constantine the 11th. And so I was curious a little bit, what he should refer to the city as. Because I thought, he's the final Byzantine emperor. So he would call the city Constantinople or Constantinople or whatever. I don't know. I don't ever know how to pronounce anything. But, I was at first thinking he'd, call it Constantinople. But I was reading, and I think the Greeks, the Byzantines, actually simply referred to Constantinople as the city, or also they referred to it as like the Queen of Cities and stuff like that. They didn't really so much say Constantinople. They said the city or the Queen of Cities or whatever. That was more their description, their name for the city. So throughout the book, Constantine will only really refer to the city, Istanbul. He'll just say He Polis, or the city, or he'll say the Queen of Cities. So it's just kind of a cool detail I worked in, and I don't know if this is like foreshadowing or whatever, but this is like the early part of the book, page 147, early part of the book. A lot of books are kind of like, that's the middle, late part of the book. Anyway, so right here, these characters are speaking English, and originally what happened was, Constantine was just kind of there in the middle, and he wasn't doing anything, because he doesn't speak English. But in the like late part of the book, you actually, well, I guess it's not a spoiler, whatever, I don't know. Anyway, in the later part of the book, you actually find out that Constantine, is kind of speaking English all of a sudden. And there is a very definite reason why he is able to do that. But anyway, for this part here, early part of the book, page 147, I realized I could kind of set that up in a real subtle way, I think, where it says, Ariel speaks Greek, telling Constantine what they're saying, translating for him. But then I added this line, but he seemed to be listening more to her English than her Greek. And so basically what's happening here is he is, parsing out their language. So he is already kind of a little bit familiar with English, but it's, the English from, the 1400s. So the language has changed a lot since then. So he's listening more in this scene, you find out, to their English, because he's kind of like, he understands some of what they're saying, but also it's, kind of peculiar what they're saying. So he's basically at this moment, he is learning their English. He's learning how English is spoken in the modern day. So it's just a real cool line where it's real small, but it's setting up that payoff in the end that, he's going to begin speaking English. And right here, in the early part of the book, you can actually kind of see him, he's listening to them. He's paying attention to their words. He's picking up on their language. So I just really like that detail. This line here, knock his ass out and Shanghai him onto the boat. There's a line later on in the book where Trevor says something about how he is shanghaied onto this boat. And so, both characters were using that, word, Shanghai, which, is probably racist or whatever today. But I was kind of like, well, I don't know about both characters using that word Shanghai because I think to a lot of people, it's probably an archaic word. I mean, these characters would definitely know it, but I think it might be a little bit like heavy-handed or whatever. Both characters using that same phrase. And, it's going to be used again in, 200 pages or something. So, I was just kind of like, well, I don't know about both characters using the expression, Shanghai him onto the boat. So I decided just to cut it here and save the other use of Shanghai for later. I'll just kind of read this because I like this, They're more a religious sect. They believe God created 7 archangels, the most famous of whom was called the Peacock Angel, who we think to be Michael. They don't believe evil comes from Satan or hell, but from mankind. Judging by what I've seen, said Knight, I agree. Who needs a devil when mankind performs so much evil ourselves? I just love that line so much. And I think it's true because, when you think about it, you're always thinking of the devil like he's tempting your soul or whatever. But if you just look at what's going on in the world, like all this crap about like the Ukraine war and all that, and, civil war in the Sudan and civil war in, I don't know how to pronounce that, Myanmar, the worst things being done to humanity, I do not think it's, being done by like devil tempting people. You just look at humanity, really, and the worst things being done are humans doing terrible things to other humans. So I just love that line, Who needs a devil when mankind performs so much evil ourselves? I don't know, it may be kind of preachy or whatever, but whatever, I like it. So again, here's this part where, they're in the middle of a war and I forget exactly what happens, but, there's an explosion nearby. And so I had the line originally for his own part. Trevor, felt like someone had drilled a hole into his skull. Well, to me, that felt more like, that's more of a gunshot, And whereas what I actually wanted to show more is, his eardrums are rattling and, he's concussed. So I decided to change that whole line instead of, drilled into his skull. For his own part, he felt like he had spent the last 3 hours with his ear pressed against the speakers at a Spinal Tap concert. I don't know, I was kind of debating, I thought like, who is the loudest, like kind of classic rock band? And so like a lot of like the Google search was like Motley Crue or The Who or Deep Purple. But I was kind of like, I don't really like all of those bands. Then I was kind of like, what about Spinal Tap? The top line there, that whole paragraph, I decided to cut that because to me it just sounds kind of repetitive, or not repetitive. I don't know, it's just really heavy-handed in a way. I'm trying to like delve into Knight's character and what he is thinking and just kind of this internal battle he is having with himself. And I think I was just kind of going overboard with it. I do not know because some readers may really like this. They want to get in the head of the characters and they want to know like everything they are thinking and every battle they are having in their head. But I don't know, I think it also could be kind of boring in a way, just going on too long. So, I kind of think it's better a little bit to imply, the internal battle he's facing rather than to spend, a half a page or a whole page, delving into it. At least in this case, because also previously in the book, I have gone into a lot of Trevor's head and what he is thinking mentally and what mental state he is at. And in this case, I think it's better just to kind of move on a bit more. And also because, he already has kind of made his decision what to do. So I don't think his internal battle is as serious here. I think he is beginning to figure things out. So I think it's, I could do away with, this paragraph. No edits here that I want to point out, but this is a scene where Kate is with her brothers And I have this scene where her brother, Mark, basically is asking her about like help for a spell or anything because Kate is a witch. He wants help because his girlfriend and he are having problems having a baby because his girlfriend keeps having miscarriages. And I really liked this scene, but not too long ago, I kind of thought, wait a minute, does Mark already have a kid in any of the previous Samuel Creed books? Because I've already published 2 Samuel Creed books, Keeping Creed and Keeping Strong, which are both set in 2007 and 2009. And this book is set in 2013. And so I kind of realized, wait a minute, does Mark already have a kid in the books, 5 years before this? And so I was real nervous that this scene would actually not make sense because if in the Samuel Creed series, if Mark is already a father. So just today I picked up Keeping Strong, the second Samuel Creed book, and I checked out this scene where they're having this big dinner, and it was only Mark and his girlfriend at that dinner. So apparently, no, Mark is not a father yet. So I was able to have this scene. I was worried I'd have to change it to one of the other brothers, and there's only one other brother I could do that wouldn't have kids. But fortunately, Mark in the Samuel Creed books, does not have a kid yet, so this scene is good. And this is something I added because in the third Samuel Creed book, Keeping Fire, there's this scene basically where Kate is talking about a trip she and Samuel Creed, her brother, had to Monaco. And so I decided to add this line here. Actually, I added that line about she wanted to see Monaco again. I added that after writing Keeping Fire. But I decided to also add this other line here about she wanted to see Monaco again, but would limit how much tequila she would drink. Because you basically find out in Keeping Fire that Kate had an incident in Monaco with drinking too much tequila. And so I don't know, it's just kind of a cool reference to that book. So yeah, if you want to find out the full story, that will be in Keeping Fire, which right now I am on the 3rd draft of that book. Real small detail I wanted to add. So right here it says Trevor, his world spinning, himself concussed. Because they are in the middle of this war scene. And I think if you're in the middle of a battle, bullets going off by you, explosions going off, you are going to be like severely concussed, like concussion after concussion. Like just the power of a bullet going like whizzing by your head, I think that is going to give you a concussion. Especially for a lot of, I don't know how to say it, not like gritty war movies, but more like action-y films, kind of like James Bond books and like John Wick books and stuff. There's bullets going all around the characters and explosions and all that, and they are perfectly fine. But I think, in real life, if that's happening, you are going to be out of it because, your brain is going to be pounding. You are going to be concussed, really, even if you're not like physically damaged, like even if you're not shot, you're going to be concussed just by the bullets and stuff going so close to you. Anyway, so yeah, I just kind of wanted to add that line that basically every character you see in the scene winds up with a concussion because of the battle that's going on. Hey, and that is actually it for the edits. So that is the end of the Act 2 edits, and that is it for the edits for the 5th draft of Ottoman Destiny. I do not know if I'll do another editing explained video for this series because I think at this point it's going to be pretty much just real minor changes, just a word here or there. So I'm not sure I'm going to do any other videos for Ottoman Destiny. I think it's pretty much shown you guys the main changes that I've made. I don't know, but for now, basically I do not plan on doing another editing video for Ottoman Destiny because it's just going to be real small changes, hopefully just a word here or there. Cut a comma, change a name to a he or a she, getting rid of a word. That's probably the only changes I'll make mostly at this point. So anyway, yep, I think that's pretty much it for Ottoman Destiny. I'm going to do 2 more drafts of the book. The 6th draft, beginning with Act 3, and then the 7th and final draft beginning with Act 4. But I don't think I'll show you guys those. But I will if there's enough, I think, to merit a video. Okay, that is it for this video, so thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you in another video. Bye!
2, 3, 4.